Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Zinda, Was Not Was, The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Nummy Num, Flat Earth, Earth Flattener, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Yo.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. So, we're going to rattle our way through housekeeping. Hopefully we can contain the rows that we're in the in-between bit.
Just for the clarity of Arwin, all the questions are related to Earth-related stuff, Arwin.
Yeah, Ranty's not here either, so don't need to highlight that twice.
Yeah.
What?
Any signs of curvature?
No.
No.
Anybody?
Not on the Earth.
Big panel. Must be someone. Any signs of curvature? Anybody at all?
I sure saw the curvature once, but it turned into a newt.
Turned into a
And it didn't
newt.
get better.
Turned into a
Turned
what?
into a newt.
Turned into a newt.
Yeah.
Okay,
How did
Monty
you go
Python
from curvature
reference.
to newt?
Fair enough. Any signs of axial rotation? Of the Earth-based variety, of course.
No.
Nope.
Any evidence for the distance to the sun?
No.
There is no distance to the sun.
Correct.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope.
Anybody? Anybody at all?
Nope.
What about self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Show me that. Oh, what is it to say?
Of
Show
course.
me the ice wall.
No?
Because if,
No
obviously
molten
if they
iron
want
core?
the ice wall, then it's unreasonable for them to expect us to show the ice wall if they won't show us the molten iron core, right?
What about a demonstration of gas pressure without a container?
Don't be silly.
Never. Not even theoretically. It's just never.
What I find interesting about that point is that the ballers don't seem to listen to it. They ignore it.
Last but not least, any scientific evidence of the R value?
No.
Well, that was quick. Okay, that concludes the housekeeping. Wow, rattling through them. New guest, Physics Warrior. Good to have you.
Hey, Nathan. Thank you.
Yo.
Riley. My man.
So, has anybody got anything more interesting than Soundly to say? Because Soundly's telling everybody that Jose's confirmed and validated his observations upon the train, completely ignoring what he said in Nathan's Hangout. So I'm assuming that, I don't know, either Jose's a liar and he's been saying stuff that Soundly's conveniently misinterpreted, or Jose's told the truth and Soundly's misinterpreted what's been said. But either way, Soundly's telling stuff that's not true again. So it's like, well, what's going on?
So Soundly's still selling the curved bridge.
Yeah. After Jose not getting the same results.
Sounds
Don't get
like
it.
cognitive dissonance.
It's like the cat that's fallen overboard and can't get back on the ship. That's what he seems to be scrambling madly to do now. Get back on board after falling overboard. I don't get it. And none of the ballers will call him out for it. What's going on?
Did you see Rory Cooper's video about Soundly and Pontchartrain?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I think it's a valid point. The gaps between them all are a lot bigger than what they seem to show in Soundly's video, but that might be caused by the angle. So it is a fair point, but it could also be explained. Not saying it is explained, but I just think that he's right. I think that Soundly's faked it all. I don't think that any of it's real. I think most of it's been done on a computer somehow. I don't
Have you-
believe any of it's real.
Have you seen
what I-
that video, Numi?
Yeah.
You have or you haven't?
I seen Rory Cooper's video.
Yeah, the one that's he's done the last day that was about Soundly's observation.
No, I haven't. I'm not aware of Rory Cooper. I guess I'll subscribe to him now. That's what the channel's called, Rory
No,
Cooper.
no, it's called My Perspective.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a South
Yeah.
African guy.
Yeah. So, okay, I think I saw that anyway. Hold on, my perspective.
Well, it'd be right. It's right up your street because he's essentially backing your argument in regards to Soundly and how he's producing the footage. And prior to now, nobody's backed you up. Well, a couple of people maybe have backed you up in your argument. And I know you're aware that Ranty's dead against you, but both Anthony and I are actually on your side in your arguments towards Soundly literally faking it. And it was just brought a smile to my face when Rory Cooper basically said the same thing. And he was quite overt about it as well. He's like, well, it's fake. And then he showed how.
I think it's fake.
Yeah, well, I've stuck to that position against a lot of opposition, but I think that in the end, eventually, the truth will come out. So I'm not worried about that.
I have to agree.
But it's a very. I've always maintained that it's a very sophisticated fake, right? It's these guys are not playing around. Like they know what they're doing in terms of high quality fakery, right?
Yeah, and high quality mathematical fakery. You know, how to trick people with the mathematics. They now to beg the question.
Well, whether Soundly's pictures are fake or not, it looks obvious that they are. But Glober's also used Ranty's pictures of proof of curvature.
That's because they're all dishonest.
Yeah,
All
but
of them.
What's the distance from the viewer to the
18
horizon?
miles. It's the same distance.
Is that how far the horizon is?
Well, no, the horizon, when Ranty's doing it from like an inch, is like, I don't know, 800 feet or something. But he can see 18 miles.
Yes. So if you take the horizon has been 18 miles and Globers are saying, look, it's curvature because things are disappearing behind it, then surely going up in a weather balloon, 100,000 feet, that horizon should just keep dropping and dropping, shouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another point that Rory Cooper, My Perspective, has made from day one. So one of the very first videos I watched on Flat Earth was from Rory Cooper and him showing exactly that, a hot air balloon taking off on a flat plane with the horizon rising with you, and a hot air balloon taking off on a globe. And you're right, the horizon should just constantly fall away from you because you're on a ball, right? So the higher you go, the more bally it seems. You know, the smaller it becomes beneath you, therefore the more it drops away. That seems intuitively obvious when it's said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these pictures, like Soundly's pictures and Ranty's, all it is proving atmospheric distortion rather than any curvature, isn't it?
Yeah. That's exactly what I've said. It's optical. Whatever's going on, it's optical.
Yeah.
I would say it's surface distortion, even not even necessarily atmospheric. That the source of the distortion is actually the light moving close to surfaces, particularly of the water.
Yeah, but whatever the distortion is, that's sort of irrelevant, really. All you got to do is say, well, where's the curvature? And the curvature should be.
Well, they're calling that distortion, the curve, and they won't accept that it's not. They won't accept that it's optical. They insist that it's the curve, and it's clearly not, but they won't accept it.
But they can't. But they can't explain how the horizon rises when the higher you go up. It rises with you.
Well, that depends on how far your visibility is on the day.
Correct.
They argue the fact that it drops at all is proof that it's a ball. But the fact is, if you can only see so far, then it doesn't matter how far, it doesn't matter what shape it is. It's always going to have a limitation. And if it goes up to eye level and then you rise, but you can still only see the same distance because it's the curve, because of the conditions on the day, then you're going to get what looks like an apparent horizon dropping because you can't see right up to the point where it converges because your visibility is not good enough at that exact time on that date.
However, there is one thing to add, which is that the thing that seems to be crapping all over that at the moment is these infrared images that we're getting, because you're seeing what appears to be the horizon in the distance, and it's clear from comparison shots that on a normal camera you just get the interference of the atmosphere at a much lower and consequently a much lower horizon, Whereas if you can see further, you can see the horizon rising up further into the distance the further you go out, obviously, because we're on a flat plane. It's not dropping away at all. And these are often at altitude that these infrared images are being given to us. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot more to come. I know Ranty's going to adapt his P900 to do infrared only, now that he's got a P900 on the a P1000 on the way. So, you know, they're going to be thick and fast, I think, these images that just essentially crap all over the ball assertions in terms of the horizon. Not that any of their evidence or proof in that regard is useful, because in order to extrapolate that out into balliness, they have to apply it to a begging the question curve calculator. They have to apply R to begin with in order to extract that out and say, look, this proves the ball. No, it proves it when you beg the question.
Yeah, in the same vein with the how far you can see. You've got the Bill Nye followers, global followers, that say, oh, Bill Nye says, oh, why standing in New York, why can't you see Europe?
Well, because Europe's far too far away and too small.
Yeah, but-
Things get smaller over distance, right? It's called perspective. The answer to that question is perspective.
Yeah, but they're saying if you believe in the flat Earth, you should be able to see Europe from America.
No, that means you've got to dismiss perspective, and that's not the same as believing in a flat Earth.
Yeah, it's part of the magic trick. So in their calculations for how far you can see and what you can see, they have hijacked perspective and they have hijacked Airy's diffraction. The effects that we actually see in terms of the optics, the angle to the target, all of those things aren't considered. They're completely ignored. You're left with an orthographic representation of the world, like a side-on view. You can have it front-on orthographic, but the point is they maintain the actual sizes of everything that they put into the calculation so that they can effectively ignore perspective and beg the question, insert an R value, and get the same result as what you will actually see. But they don't tell people that you've already assumed that you're on a sphere when you make those mathematical extrapolations. You're already on a sphere when you're putting in the numbers and you're ignoring perspective. They've literally hijacked it in order to come up with those calculations. So taking into account diffraction and the angle to the target, and most importantly in regards to seeing Europe from America, the angular size limitation. Things get smaller the further away you get from them, and there is a limitation to what you can resolve. And yeah, you could get better optics, but there is still a limitation. You're not going to see 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 miles with a bloody telescope. The angular limitation of what you're looking at is what dictates how far you can see in that regard. And there's, you know, even with mountains, when people are showing these mountains at hundreds of miles, the mountains are tiny, right? They're not massive mountains. If you looked at it on the begging the question perspective hijacking calculator, they'd be depicted as huge mountains in their actual size. And it's nonsense. Obviously, when you're looking at something 200 or 300 miles away, it's considerably smaller than when you're standing right next to it. Obviously, it's an angular size reduction at distance, otherwise known as perspective. So yeah, when those mountains are seen from the plane with the sun setting behind them or with an infrared camera, they're small. And if you were to get double the distance, 600 miles away, they'd be considerably smaller still. Make that 10 by a factor of 10 go up to 6,000 miles, and it's going to be tiny. It's not. You can't see it anymore. It's too small. You can't resolve that data, that information at that distance. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's going to be really interesting is how much they ignore that infrared stuff, the way that they ignore that it's not refraction, it's not obstruction we're seeing with soundly stuff. They just ignore it. Well, they're going to ignore it with the infrared stuff, and they'll come up with some reason for why they can refuse to accept it. But nonetheless, the point is we see a lot further than what we should do. That cannot happen on a sphere. But you watch how much rejection and defiance there will be, and it'll be a lot.
This is also the con of geodesy. So if you imagine you're standing next to a mountain, literally you're at the base of the mountain, you're going to have to crane your neck to look up to the top of that mountain. In other words, your viewing angle for that mountain is definitely above you. The viewing angle goes up. As you back away from that mountain, it will eventually reach the point where it's at eye level with you. It's effectively directly ahead of you at the same height. It's not. It's just reduced in angular size. And then as you go further away still, it's going to reduce. So then into the viewing angle being critical for where the diffraction comes in, because it's below that midpoint in your eyes. So you're getting a more and more limited angle to that item the further away you get away from it, until eventually you're into the point where you're going to see it start disappearing bottom up because of diffraction.
Yeah, I've just come back off holiday. Before we took off, I took a picture out the window of the horizon, and then when we were flying at 35,000 feet, I put the iPhone in the same position, took another photo, and the horizon just stays the same. But if they're saying like soundly and they're saying ranty at 18 miles curvature, we can see curvature. That you shouldn't see any horizon when you're at 35,000 feet. I just don't understand how they don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. So Rory Cooper, as I said earlier, depicted this. And yeah, it should have significantly dropped.
Obviously and observably as well. Without precision instruments, you should be able to tell it straight away. Because at the end of the day, you can go onto Google Earth, set your altitude to 30,000 feet, and over a small frame of you can see the curve easily without any getting straight lines out. Well, that's the way it should be on a sphere. It's exactly what we should see.
Again, if we're led to believe that we're constantly at the top of the sphere because of gravity, so we're always perpendicular to the top, if that's the right terminology. From some of Block for Block's demonstrations, it seems like the obvious nature of the ball should be immediate, within yards of someone walking away from you. And, you'll have to check out Block for Block's demonstrations on this, but when he showed it, I was like, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And he's modelling it out just as reality in terms of what the horizon would do if you're on a ball. And the effect is quite dramatic. So I think it would be blatantly obvious if we did actually live on a sphere, if they weren't just hijacking perspective and we were just on a flat plane with only the effects of perspective in play, which is what we know to be true. But if we were genuinely on a ball, we'd still have perspective. That wouldn't go away. So therefore, the effects would be pretty dramatic. We'd know about it pretty quickly.
If we lived on a spinning ball, it would be obvious to us every single day.
But let's put it into perspective. With Block for Block, he was one of the people that was pushing the water is not hydrogen and oxygen. So although we agree with him on the modelling side of it, I don't think anybody on the panel agrees with him that water's not made of hydrogen or oxygen.
Sorry, did you say Block for Block thinks water's not hydrogen and oxygen?
Yeah, he started pushing that.
Burn him!
I'm sure it was Block for Block that started doing that, yeah. He said that he felt that water was sentient. And I was like, where's that come from? What are you talking about? I just thought we were losing Block for Block for a minute. He seems to have died down a little bit now, but thank God he's not pushing that water is not hydrogen and oxygen.
The next thing
anymore.
you know, we'll be telling people that plane wings don't have jet fuel in them.
Oh, I'm with him on that one. Well, they do have jet fuel in them, but not as much as what we're being told.
Right, I'm kicking you out.
No! I take it back. I apologize. There is fuel in wings. Anything you say, Nathan.
Right, let's use a more severe example. Next thing you know, we're saying that bloody what are they called? Mountains are trees.
Yeah, I'm not with him. I'm not. I don't agree with him on that one.
Or that the Mandela effect isn't just standard media practice. We do actually have things changing. Anyway, let's
some of those Mandela effects are pretty trippy, man.
Just standard media.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying some of them are real head turners, though. Like,
yeah, but it's prying on your brain's inability to remember precisely that was 20 years ago.
I know. I'm just saying some of them are. It's pretty entertaining stuff, though.
Yeah, but I just think that's standard media manipulation. So you can find an explanation for almost every single Mandela effect if you're prepared to look long enough. But yeah, you're right. The fact that they exist and people haven't got that good a memory is fascinating.
The only one that really really weirds me out the most is the the magic mirror on the wall from Snow White.
Yeah, because every bugger ever says it's mirror, mirror. That just because everyone repeats it incorrectly doesn't mean that the original cartoon is wrong when you go back and actually check it.
I feel like I never heard anyone repeat that, though. It's just...
You've never heard anybody say mirror, mirror?
I'm not arguing for the Mandela effect, okay? I'm just saying that one is weird. That one made me feel really strange when I first saw it.
Fair enough.
That it's pretty entertaining, the Mandela effect theory. Whether it's true or not. It's probably very unlikely to be true.
It was the first thing I came across 3 and a bit whatever years ago when I first started looking at flat Earth, and the second thing I come across is Mandela effect, and from that day to this I've been in an outrage about things like the Mandela effect and no forests and the fuel hoax and all this kind of bollocks, it always sends me into a slight outrage. You're like, what? That's an outrageous statement. How can you possibly make that? Have you done no research? You know, in every instance, you start off by going, oh, that might be interesting. So you look into it and very quickly discover that it's complete and utter nonsense. But Mandela was the first one for me. I just remember it like it was yesterday, getting into it with Jesse Spots. You know, Jesse, do you remember Jesse Spots?
No.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah,
F.
he was one of the first flat earthers that I started watching, and good thing that I moved on quickly because I think he might have been enough to turn me off of the whole idea.
Exactly. You go, oh wow, flat Earth, that's interesting, and definitely what I observe in reality. What's that you say? Mandela effect, clone centers. What? What are you talking
I
about?
think
This is
that
nonsense.
maybe just the thing is to not take the idea of, say, cloning centers literally, or the Mandela effect, that they're actually kind of analogies for things that are really happening.
Well,
But
Mandela started from people believing that Mandela died in the 1980s, didn't it? But well, I don't recall him dying in the 1980s.
Is he not American?
I'm mistaking Nelson Mandela for I think the mistaken the guy that died in the 80s wasn't. Let me think. Sorry, carry on, sir.
The bottom line is a lot of Americans thought that Nelson Mandela died in jail. Now, while he was in jail, it was illegal to wear a Free Mandela t-shirt. I remember it. I was very, very young at the time, but I remember it being headline news that you weren't allowed to wear a Free Mandela t-shirt. They'd lock you up for it. And then one of the laws that changed was that you were allowed to wear a Free Mandela t-shirt when they got out of jail, which was very nice for all those people with Free Mandela t-shirts. Wonderful for them. But I just remember thinking how ironic. And I remember the Free Nelson Mandela song being on there, the radio and on TV. And we just got a totally different narrative. It was in the papers for us. It wasn't mainstream headline news in the States. So it got forgotten about. You know, South African news isn't that interesting to the Americans. Why would it be? You know, in the same way we don't get news from Mexico.
yeah, I don't remember hearing it much about Nelson Mandela when that was all going down.
But you probably get news in the States about Pablo Escobar and things like that back in the day. And would we get that news? No, of course not.
Yeah, we're basically immersed in the American news.
The American dream.
Yeah, the American nightmare.
Is it a nightmare?
American.
Is it a nightmare living in the States?
We're producing the majority of it up in Canada, so.
I was about to say shouldn't really ask you that question as you're Canadian.
Yeah. Canada is the location of the secret base where all the propaganda is created to keep the American dream alive.
Yeah, you've got the Hollywood dream being made in the States, but the TV fake reality that most of the Americans actually see on TV or TV news is made in Canada.
Yeah, that's true. That's how it works. But a lot of Hollywood films are actually produced in Canada as well. You know, they call Toronto Hollywood North and we have the largest or second largest, it depends on who you ask, film industry in North America.
Well, it doubles for a lot of American cities, doesn't it? So I don't know how. If I was a resident of one of the cities that they use Toronto to double as, you'd just know, wouldn't you? But you know, they put these Hollywood movies out and say they're in, I don't know, New York for the sake of argument, but it's actually filmed in Toronto because it's got a lot of high rises. It just looks like a lot of American cities, but it's blatantly not if you live in any of the cities it's claiming to be.
Right. Yeah, but it was built in the same period as a lot of American cities, right? So we have a lot of brownstone houses and a similar style of architecture and sort of street layout. So it can double in that sense. Just in, you know, it would be very difficult to pass off London as New York. Right. But it's just, it has more to do with the period that it was constructed than anything else. But they do a really good job of hiding you know, things that would be very conspicuous to people to identify it as one city or another. And they also use a lot of compositing to that effect.
Sure. I remember getting a tour and somebody saying, I couldn't even name a single film that he told me, but at the time, as we were driving around, he was like, this was filmed there, that's the scene where this was filmed. You're like, but we're in Canada, what are you talking about? And he gave me the same explanation you gave me, of course, but, you know, it kind of blew my mind to think that stuff that's filmed in a particular American city is not even been filmed in America at all. Just cracks you up.
Well, it's like they shoot practically nothing in New York because the street permits are so expensive that it's just not worth it, right? It just eats up the budget to try to block off a block of New York City. You know, it costs like, I don't know what it costs, probably 50 to 100 grand a day or something like that. Whereas in Toronto, you can get it much cheaper.
Lee Mack in the chat says, same with Transformers. It was filmed down here in Portsmouth, UK. Not sure how true that is, but if it is, I don't disbelieve it for a second.
Yeah.
Hello?
Someone in the chat called Shirtless Flat Earther wants to join. Arwin said if anyone wants to make room to boot him out, so does someone boot Arwin out?
I'll boot him out.
I'll drop if he can join in. He said
you're chatting, so I think Arwin's disappeared.
There, isn't it?
I think Arwin's disappeared. Is there anybody else who's not chatting on the panel? Was. Anybody else that you've seen that's not chatting?
I could jump off, Nathan.
Okay,
Arwen said he'd be back in 40 minutes, and that if you need room in the panel, you can kick him.
I could drop right now, Nathan.
Okay, yeah, you can come back, physics, if there's a need, yeah, but feel free.
Roger that. See you guys.
Thank you for joining. There's a gap on the panel as of now if you want to join. I'm going to go away and die.
Yeah,
I'm your nose, Nathan.
Sorry, what was that, Anthony?
Go and blow your nose. You're dead good at that.
I'm surrounded by tissues. I've done nothing but blow my nose for this entire show.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Go and blow your nose. You're dead good at it. Skill level is expert.
So who's joining? Or who said they wanted to join?
Shirtless Flat Earther.
Shirtless Flat Earther.
I know a shirt lifter ball earther. Shout out to Sam.
No. Well, he's not joining. Click the link in the info box if you want to join.
Hurry up, Shirtless.
I'll do that, Glenn Mack. Says, eat a load of garlic. No problem, if you think that'll sort it.
That's what I told my girl, and so she just ate like half of it, and it didn't work for her, so she was really mad.
Hello, how you doing, Ian?
Miller time.
Oh, we've got a full panel again now, so too late.
Had your chance, man. You had your chance.
I have a topic to discuss if you are ready for it. I mean, if you discussed it the rest to the end.
Yeah, go on.
All right. You know, to clarify before, like, I'm not a flat earther, but I'm really skeptic towards the geocentric model. So I'm still trying to convince myself to one side. And there is something I don't understand about the flat earth model with the sun. So just to clarify, and then please correct me if I'm wrong, do you believe that the sun is smaller than the Earth itself?
The answer is we don't know what the sun is, whether it's tangible or not. We don't know if it's in the sky where they tell us. We don't know if we have a direct line of sight to it or not. We don't really know anything about the sun, but they tell us that it's 93 million miles away. But we're not able to validate that claim to be true.
Of course.
Can I try and answer? Can I try and give you an answer, Zinder? Am I saying your name right, by the way? Is it Zinder or Xander?
Cinder, just say Cinder. It's
Zinder.
alright, it's just a fake name for this. I could say the real name too, if you like.
No, it's all good. No.
All right.
I don't mind. Whatever you lot, Zinder's fine
Yeah.
by me. I mean, from my vantage point, when I look at the sun, it only lights a small section of the land. I know that over there, I don't need to describe it, but over there is in darkness, and over there is in light. And when I look at it, it's physically smaller than the land I occupy. So based purely on my observations of the sun, in spite of the fact that I don't know what it is, I would say, yeah, it seems to be considerably smaller than the Earth.
So, if sun rays were parallel, and this is something I just looked up before, and it can be measured. It's written down here. So if sun rays are parallel, the sun has to be bigger than the Earth itself. Is this true?
How do you mean if sun rays are parallel?
You can see that the sun rays are not parallel.
All right. So I just read about it, and I'm still skeptical about it. But I will read one part of the text. I can show it to you on screen share. Which
Yes, please. Great.
So here they say lenses, like mirrors, have a focal point f. If an object is infinitely far away from the lens or mirror, then the focal point is where the image forms. So in the real world, this never happens, except maybe when we fry an insect with magnifying glasses, with an what is this? Infinitesimally, I can't pronounce it. Sorry, it's not my language, but small image. So they say that the sun has to be really far away or infinitely far away to form parallel rays.
No.
And this can be proven by taking lenses and frying insects with it, because parallel rays...
Who's told you this? Have you been watching Simon Dan citing conspiracy cats?
No, I've never watched him.
Well,
he's citing a paper that he has on screen.
So if you... Sorry, what was that about a paper you have on screen?
I'm saying he's not getting that. He's
click on his
citing a
screen.
paper that he's got up on screen. That's where
It was
he's
on
getting
screen.
his information.
Okay, so I'm not watching the screen. I'm busy playing Command & Conquer. But all right, so
Anthony,
if you get a lens,
you can't. That's so unfair. If you're playing a game and you're quizzing somebody on their citation and it's literally on screen for everybody in the audience, do you not think that's a bit unreasonable to the person that's presenting?
I didn't know he had it on screen. I'm sorry,
but you've interrupted him for it.
Can you put your screen back up? Can you put that image back up?
Wait a minute here. So I just was watching about lenses because I heard once that about the focal point, right? So the focal point has to be when rays come in parallel. They say the focal point has to be where the images form, right? So usually the focal point isn't where the image forms. Usually the image forms at another part. Like here, they show in this image that rays come in parallel, and here's the focal point, and here's where the image forms. For example, when you take the lens and fry insect with the sun's energy. If the sun rays weren't parallel, this shouldn't happen, because you couldn't concentrate all those beams to one point.
But don't you think that in the very tiny area of a magnifying glass that the rays might be close enough to parallel?
Yes, that was my point.
Yeah, they say, like, the sun rays aren't really parallel, they are almost parallel. But if we would have a sun that is smaller than the Earth, shouldn't the rays be not really parallel? Like, they would look different on this model that we have shown here.
I mean, you're not screen sharing at the moment, to be perfectly honest, Cinder, but I mean, I've got a picture of light rays coming through the clouds, and they're blatantly not parallel.
Yeah, it's still a question of scale.
Well, this is perspective. If you were talking about perspective, right? So if you stand in front of rails that are parallel and you look in front, you look in the direction of the horizon, for example, or something like that, they seem to converge into each other. It's exactly the same with the parallel rays if you look into the clouds.
not sure I follow what you're saying exactly there.
So the rays that seem to converge into each other when you look into the clouds is exactly the same phenomenon that you experience when you watch at the rails converging into each other if you stand on next to a track where trains pass, you know. So that's, I don't see the problem with that.
Well, the problem is that they're going back to a source, so the train tracks never reach a point where they converge. The sun does. So in this instance, what's on screen now is light rays actually converging at a point, the sun. The train tracks
But I
never do
can't
that.
see it.
They're parallel
Sorry.
because they carry on forever next to each other, never ever converging. Whereas clearly, the light rays converge at the sun.
I would have to watch this picture, but I've
Well-
never seen one that looks like it would converge into one. So, oh,
It's
here,
on,
all right.
It's on screen
So
right now. It's literally on screen. I've got
see
it
now,
up.
all right.
It's on screen right now.
Yeah, but I can't see them converging, and I have to look up like the rails.
What do you mean you can't see them converging?
I can't see them converging. You know, like, wait.
Well, I don't understand how you can't see them when it's on screen.
Literally on screen.
Well, they are behind the cloud. This is
Yeah.
behind the cloud, you know.
I mean, yeah, if it wasn't for the cloud being there, you wouldn't see the beams of light coming down. But
Yeah,
are you proposing that the sun isn't there? That suddenly this isn't the sun, where they obviously converge?
I say it could just look like. I'm not sure. So
Okay,
But what about the picture on the right? I think you can actually see the sun.
it's behind a tree, but yeah.
Well, you can see it partially. It's partially obstructed, but you can.
But that denies the fact that the sun is there, though, right? We know that the sun is there. That's not in dispute, unless you're going to argue that the sun's not actually there.
of course the sun has to be somewhere, but as I showed you before with the lenses, you can say that the sun rays are parallel because you know the focal point is there where you see the image, and this only happens when the rays are parallel.
Yeah, but you
or
could
the light
easily.
rays.
The argument is that if you were to stand, I don't know if you can. Let's see if I can get my mouse to appear. Can you see my mouse? So if you were to
Wait,
stand here, then if you put a tiny lens at the end of this beam of light, you could say that yeah, they're parallel because they practically are. But when you compare them to this one over here, they're not. So yeah, if you're using a very tiny section of one ray of these lights, then yeah, you can make your example, but it's simply not true when you look at the bigger picture and look at how the light rays converge at the sun.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just brought in an idea, so you know, a little bit closer. All right. So yeah, you have a point on that.
That is the same point that No Simon Dan brought up again with conspiracy cats. I asked him to demonstrate the distance to the sun according to current science with evidence, not just rhetoric, with evidence. And he brought up this point that to support the idea that the sun is distant rather than close. And he said you can get a lens and put the light of the sun onto it, and that proves that it has to be far away because they need to be parallel. But the trouble is, even if the sun's just like even 100 miles away, the light rays are effectively parallel by virtue of the fact that you're using a 6-inch lens. So it really isn't proportionate to argue that a lens would give you parallel rays of light, therefore sun must be close, must be far away, when your lens is only 6 inches wide. You see?
Shouldn't they drift even more away from each other the further they travel? So, you know, if you take like a candle and like move like 100 meters away, the rays should like drift even further from each other, right?
Well,
so diverge.
So
yes, you're right. The only problem with that is, in the same way as you can't get around a rainbow, you can't walk around it. The same applies to the sun. As you move closer to it, the sun's going to move with you. So,
all right.
So yeah, you're right, but you find me an instance where I can walk around the sun, and it can't be done.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just was like trying to point out that if you take like a big glass, right, like a big lens, the rays shouldn't really be parallel, because if the object is so far away, or like I don't know don't know how many miles, like 4,000 miles I've heard about the flat Earth or something like that. The rays shouldn't really meet parallel on the lens, because they start from there, then they start to go further away from each other, and then comes the next one, stuff like that. So they should really seem to come from many directions.
But the problem is that the lens is so small that the actual amount of divergence that you're gonna measure within the width of a lens is going to be infinitesimally small, right? Even under that assumption, I think you would need a very, very unfathomably large lens to actually start to be able to get any kind of measure of the non-parallel.
All right.
Hi,
So
Alexander.
maybe I should buy one.
Hey,
spend
Alexander.
a little bit money and prove it for myself.
You don't need to just go and stand on.
So I think.
Hold on, guys. Hold on 1 second. Hi, new guest Alexander. How you doing?
Hello.
Good to have you.
Hello.
Yeah, do you hear me?
We hear you loud and
Do
clear.
you hear me?
We do.
Yes.
We hear you.
Yeah.
How are we? Are we good?
Oh, I have to stop the. I have to stop.
The problem is, without actually knowing the size of the sun, it would be very difficult to calculate how large that lens would have to be in order to measure whether the rays were parallel or not, right?
Yeah.
That's because it's the same for all the distance to the sun. You need to know the size of it, or something else in the celestial skies, and they don't know any of the distances or sizes to get the other, which was the reason why I've asked my question. Where does it come from? Where does the distance come from? Because you need to know the actual size of something. And as far as I can tell, they don't know the actual size of anything, nor do they know the distances. It all seems to have come from Cassini and Huygens.
Also, I have to say I can't prove for myself how big the sun is, so I still would have to speculate about it, and this is pointless. So I should, maybe I can, if I buy a big enough lens, I can see the result and then calculate how the sun rays exactly came in, stuff like that. But until I did that, it's kind of pointless to
because then you
discuss this.
I don't think there's any point in that either.
Then you've got to work out, are you on a flat plane or are you on a sphere? And if you're on a sphere, then you get one set of results. If you're on a plane, you get another set of results.
Oh, no. I just want to reiterate Nummy's point. So what Nummy was saying is, unless you had a lens that was capable of taking in this amount of area, I'll just so you guys can see, a huge area where you might actually see something other than parallel lines. Whereas if you're just in this spot here, which is potentially the size of a massive boat, the other problem is if you were at this spot here, you wouldn't actually see the sun's rays coming to you at this angle, as weird as that sounds. The sun would look the same as it does from this vantage point. In other words, we've got no idea how the sun works or what it's doing, but in reality, this guy here, looking at the sun out in the distance, is going to get a totally different view of the sun and what it's doing than somebody in this boat here. It will look totally different.
Yeah, that's completely true.
So it's like...
It seems like it's like a rainbow, like you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trying to chase a rainbow. So as weird as this sounds, this guy can see this sun ray coming at an angle, whereas if you're in the boat, it isn't. And that makes no sense to me whatsoever, but that is genuinely what the sun does. So you can't go around it to actually measure its distance. You can't triangulate it, because as soon as you go closer to it, it's moved.
Yeah, this makes sense. All right.
But it doesn't make sense if the sun's a tangible object.
No,
the way
quite
we're
right.
told.
Not at all. It doesn't. If the sun was tangible, then yeah, that's fine. But it's not, and we can't move around it, which makes me think, well, what the hell is it? We have no idea. It's certainly not a physical thing.
All right, never thought about it.
Which is, of course, the reason why.
Interesting point. Yeah.
Which is, of course, the reason why when we ask in housekeeping how far's the distance to the sun, Arwin always says there is no distance to the sun, and I agree with that. There is no distance to the sun unless you can prove what it is.
Yeah.
Can I share something?
Go ahead.
I hope it works. I have pushed the green button, and now
Nothing yet. Try again.
yeah.
Yep, there we go.
And do you see it?
We've just got to hang out at the moment, but yeah.
The blue sky. You see it?
Yep, got it.
It was on 27th of July, and I stepped outside and I saw a chemtrail and a heavy shadow. So I run back to get my camera, and it was already diminishing a little, but you still can see it. So what exactly happened was that the sun already passed the chemtrail. So it looks, it's evidently that the sun is behind the chemtrail, but still creates a shadow back into the sky. On what? I don't know. And it's my second sighting, because on the 25th of March last year, I had this one. The chemtrail that goes directly to the upcoming sun, the rising sun, has a stark shadow. It evidently is behind the chemtrail, but still creates a shadow going, created upwards.
That's
On what?
weird.
I don't know.
That's so weird.
That is very strange.
Wow.
So I wanted to share that because we don't know what sunlight does and how it creates.
That's so cool. It's a beautiful image just anyway, but the fact that you've got this shadow above the chemtrail, that's so weird.
Yeah.
That is so strange.
Everyone taking screen caps. I love it. Yep, I'm in that. Yes, please.
That is one of the strangest photos I've ever seen.
So what's a logical explanation for this?
Okay, but wait a minute. Why isn't there that other chemtrail that's crossing it at a?
No,
90...
it's not crossing. Oh, that one that's crossing it. It's not going towards the sun. That's the difference.
Huh. Weird.
Even the two one beside it that look almost going to the sun. It might appear that there is a shadow, but it's just a small space between it.
Gotcha. It's just a gap.
I'm a little nervous because this is my first appearance on anywhere.
Well, thank you for coming, because that's
thank you very much. Stunning images. Brilliant.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't even know where to start with that. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost for words as well. Very cool.
Can you somehow share the original photo with us? Somehow? Is that possible?
The JPK or the RAW?
Sorry, what do you mean, the JPEG or the RAW?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by that.
They have. Oh no.
The JPEG image or the RAW file?
Oh, the RAW.
So this is when you take the picture.
The RAW.
Well, the RAW would be good if you could put up like some sort of down.
This one is taken by my Canon, and the other one I have only in JPEG. That's taken with my Lumix. Okay.
If you could provide.
And how do I share it?
I don't know, Nathan. What would be the best way to go about? Could you just email it to me, maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think you can stick it in the side chat. Don't think that'll work.
Can you invite me? Go ahead.
It would if it was small enough.
Stick it in the side chat. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you move your mouse
it.
over the page you're on now, on the left-hand side will appear a load of boxes, and the top box is like, I think it's a blue box with 3 lines in it, which is the chat.
Yeah.
And then when you bring it in the chat, it'll just, there's a typing box which you can add files to and stuff.
Or you could put it into a Google Drive and share the link.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that.
If you don't mind doing that, I would really appreciate it because I'd like to look at that photo more carefully.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
that's very interesting.
The first one, this one is already darkened because it was already very faint. So, but I'll send you the original. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very.
About 5 minutes left.
Wow, that's a neat photo. Have you guys ever seen anything like that?
No. Only on
Yes, I
Soundly's
have.
Pontchartrain stuff.
Yeah, I've seen a similar photo with a weird shadow and a chemtrail. I can't remember where, but I have seen one of the photos similar. Might have been a video.
What else did we have today? Interesting, some points.
So basically, the ballers are keeping away. They're on protest again because Nathan's got the mute button, the dreaded mute button. But actually, they can't debate very well because they come in and rumpus to hang out, or they just assert their nonsense to be true without any evidence to support it that's credible, repeatable, verifiable, or generally anything that's quite credible. Yet we're expected to believe that we're on a ball.
What that actually means, roughly translated, is when there's an opportunity to lose, they can negate that by rumpusing the hangout, by talking constantly, shouting, causing disruption. And if it's their hangout, that's perfectly permissible and will be allowed while the winning point gets lost as everyone talks over it. In this hangout, when somebody's about to lose and they start to do that, I can and do shut them up.
I remind myself of GeoStreamer's hangout where Rumpus got kicked for Rumpus in his own hangout with GeoStreamer. But of course, he didn't get kicked for Rumpus in the hangout. If you watch back the hangout where Rumpus got kicked, you realise that he was just about to have his point obliterated by Brandon Toy. And Rumpus performed a tactical foul so that the point got lost. And in doing so, we took one for the team by getting kicked. But if you're not really watching or don't realise what's really going on, Rumpus knew that he was about to get the point that they were making destroyed, and he had to take one. He had to take him out, otherwise it would have been a goal. And that's what they do. They won't accept losing points, so they will literally obfuscate the point to death.
Big shout out to Brandon Toy. So we chatted to him after he did that hangout with Geodeceiver and Rumpus and various other people, and he didn't even realise what had occurred. And when we pointed it out to him, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was on a roll there, and yeah, I did lose my point." And it's like, yeah, that's why it happened. That was the purpose of it happening. But even he didn't notice it. And because you're in the heat of the moment, you're like, what's going on in the hangout? You're paying attention to the show. Whereas his point was the most important detail. That's why it happened. And that got lost.
What show was that on?
It was on one of GeoStreamer's most recent ones. It might not be his most recent one, but it's the one with Brandon Toy. So go to GeoStreamer's channel and look at the Brandon Toy one. The icon's the Toy Story logo, obviously. But just find the part where Rumpus gets kicked. GeoStreamer kicks him for what seems to be a credible reason to maintain a one-to-one hangout. But actually, look in the background of what's actually happening in context. Rumpus realizes that Brandon's just about to destroy the main argument or the main piece of evidence, and basically he has to take one for the team. So it's been noted that Rumpus took one for the team at the expense of being kicked, literally to stop his point being obfuscated, and Brandon then lost it. Not because Brandon made a mistake, but because he wasn't aware that these ballers will obfuscate points when they're losing, and they will do it to death. And obviously, this takes me back to paper explanators. Hank asked paper explanator, how did they know the distance to the stars? Which essentially is the same question as the distance to the sun, is the same question as the distance to the moon. They need something in the sky to get the distance to everything because they've got the relative scale. They've got Kepler's third law on interplanetary motion. They know that it's all relative to each other, but they need something to get the distance. And that something doesn't seem to actually exist. And basically, Hank asked paper explanator, how did they get the distance to the stars? And he opened up by saying, well, you've got to assume that the sun is 93 million miles away. And he said it in a way that people just didn't listen, didn't spot. But actually, you don't have to assume that the sun is 93 million miles away. That's the whole point. We're asking, well, what is the distance to the sun? And you don't have to make the assumption that it's 93 million miles away at all. You want to see the proof that it is 93 million miles away, because once you've got one of them, you get all of them. But you need to get one of them to get all the rest, and that's the bit that we're asking for. And nobody seems to be able to give us any evidence whatsoever other than a story. Well, stories are lovely. Where's the proof it's true? Well, everybody knows this. It's true. No, we want to see the proof that it is actually true, and doesn't seem to exist. And the more people we ask, the less we get anywhere.
Nathan, before you close this chat, can you just explain to this guy how he can drop the Google link into the side chat?
I'm probably not the best person to ask. Anthony probably knows better than I do.
How big's the image?
No, he's going to drop a link to a Google Drive. Zinder, are you there?
Yeah. So he needs to just open the chat icon then in the side chat.
Yeah. Okay, I'll explain it to him. Zinder, so if you want to share the link to that Google Drive, are you ready to do that yet?
I am. I have put it in my Dropbox, so I will put a sharing.
Okay. Okay. So what you do in order to share it with us, if you look at the Google Hangout screen, in the top left corner, there's a blue speech bubble box. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So then if you click on that, it will open a panel on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And then you can drop the link in there.
Oh yeah, see it.
I mean, it's Alexander, not Zinder.
Oh. I think he said Zinder, didn't he?
There's two people that joined at a similar time, but no, it's not. It's Alexander. Zinder's somebody else.
No, I'm talking... Oh. Sorry. Yeah, Alexander. Sorry, I got confused.
Now, I'm not going to share this with the public because he hasn't asked me to. So if it does get shared in the show, help yourself. There it is, dummy.
It's there.
Yep, sweet. Thank you.
It won't go public, so.
So just let's remind all the flat earthers out there: if you do get involved in discussions, be aware that they will obfuscate when they're about to lose. So be mindful of the tactics that they do operate with. They will obfuscate that point in one way or another. So be wary. Keep on topic. Keep asking for proofs. Keep asking for evidence to support the position. If it doesn't look persuasive, ask for more, because they're the ones that have got to prove it, not us.
Yeah, so if they present you a model and the question is, where did the real world data come from? And the answer is, it didn't. It's taken from our model. Then you can laugh in their faces. But what actually happened was, at that moment, that key, important moment, Rumpus started rumpusing and then he got kicked out by Geo. So suddenly there's a massive distraction and everyone's more focused on the fact that someone's been kicked out of the Hangout. What's that all about? Rather than, hang on a second, this hasn't come from real world data. Nobody's actually measuring this. This is an extrapolation based on a model. This is a mathematical proof. It doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, it was the best example of an obfuscation tactic that I've ever seen in my life. And when I saw it, I was like, Nathan, did you see that? And it was just like, this is glorious. This perfectly illustrates what happens.
Same thing happened yesterday. So we get to the point where we establish with Rumpus, is this based on a presupposition of R? Yes, correct. Right, so you've got an R value that you can't prove. And then we had lots of shouting and obfuscation and talking over while he says, well, no, we have got proof of it. We don't have to use science to measure it. And it's like, no, you're travelling in a circle and then deciding that that's not actually a circle. You're on the outside edge of a sphere and that circle is going to give you the radius of that sphere. Well, no, you've just travelled in a circle based on where the sun has travelled and then arbitrarily decided that you will apply the radius of a sphere to that circle. Well, that's not proving you're on a sphere. It's absolute horseshit. And then you take that sphere and you turn it into Earth diameters and say that the distance between here and that light in the sky is 11,000 of these Earth diameters. It's the biggest pile of bollocks ever. It's just horseshit.
They just don't get it.
I just don't get it. Yeah, I do get it.
But no, what they do get the art to try and make sure you don't lose the point ever. They will obfuscate. That's what I want to make clear, that they will obfuscate to death because they know it's important.
Yeah. But you'd think like somebody, it seems like he should be intelligent enough to have understood the point by now, but I guess that's just the game they're playing.
It's a game that they're losing as well, though.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, with a terribly bunged up nose, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live panel, excuse me, for joining and making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know what to do. But if you liked it, consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!